My next guest is hails from Australia, and it is Anne Ryan. And she is a business mentor and a money mindset coach. Anne's mission is to empower women to own their worth, right? Embody your influence and ditch their money blocks so they can become financially independent and live a life without sacrifice or limitations. Whoop, whoop. She mentors female coaches and consultants to package and position their value into a high ticket offer so good that it practically sells itself. She helps them to accelerate their authority so they can take their followers from cold to sold fast. Love that. And she shows them how to implement a predictable organic client acquisition system so they can make a consistent income month after month. That's what I'm talking about, sustainable prosperity. Anne is a wife and mother to 2 teenagers, and she lives in Melbourne, Australia. Aside from her online coaching business, she also runs an offline business with her husband, and she supports her elderly parents. So put your hands together and help me welcome Anne Ryan to the stage. Wah! And the crowd goes wild. Thank you, Anne, for being with us so early in the morning.
Oh, it's perfectly okay. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. It is early, as you can tell from the window behind me, but it's not that early. I'd normally be awake. I'd just be in my pajamas.
I love that. I often say, because I get up really early in the morning, and I often say, I'm up early, but it's about going out. So,
Exactly.
So thank you for being with us. And I love the work that you're doing in terms of, I love this cold to sold and the high ticket offer. When we talk to women, a lot of moms, about embodying their influence, embodying their power, there's usually like a stair step around prosperity and really having economic power. Can you speak to that in your own life and then how you came to do what you're doing?
Yeah, and I guess it started from quite a young age. I was raised in a very traditional home. My dad was the breadwinner. My mum was the stay-at-home mum, and I was kind of told. My parents were very, very encouraging and open to me choosing whatever path I chose. If I chose to get married and never worked, that would be okay. If I chose to go to university, that would be okay too. So they were very encouraging. But I could see what society was saying, and that was, there were traditional things that needed to happen. And so I was quite a rebel from a young age, and I refused to conform. And so I went into the construction industry.
You did?
I did. I studied construction engineering, and I fell into that industry, and it was really interesting. And that's when I first sort of really opened my eyes into it. It was hard enough to break through into that industry as a female in the 90s. But then to sort of get paid equivalent to men, and that's when it began, and I made all the mistakes. I worked the long hours. I did what I felt I had. I worked twice as hard as the men in order to be recognized and noticed. I did all those things, and then I learned from all those lessons too. And I found myself going I did leave the construction industry, but then I still worked in very, very male-dominated industries, in my corporate career, and found that, as a woman, you had to kind of go above and beyond and work twice. It was quite a boys' club in many large organizations, and I realized that if I didn't own my own worth, if I didn't believe I was worth it, if I didn't claim it, if I wasn't willing to ask for exactly what I wanted, and I had to speak up for that at the risk of losing jobs sometimes, at the risk of walking away from what may have seemed like the best opportunity that was so great for my career. That people would, no one was going to give it to us on a plate, right? We had to kind of claim it. We had to ask for what we wanted. And so that was kind of the early stages of it. And then, of course, then we started our own business, and yeah, that sort of evolved.
So when you say we started our own business, are you speaking about your husband and you?
Correct. Yeah. So after having kids, I actually earned more than my husband at that time. So it actually made sense for me to return to work. So I had taken a 12 months maternity leave with both kids, but it made sense for me to return to work. And so, we were breaking the rules. I was breaking the rules. I was like, you can stay at home with the kids. That's okay. And it was a great opportunity for him as well to have that experience and to bond with the kids. And I did also choose a man who did treat me as an equal and saw me as an equal. And I guess I learned a lot of lessons from the relationship that my parents had, which was a wonderful relationship. So it's not anything, there was nothing wrong with it, but I saw there wasn't equality, there wasn't, it was my dad as the breadwinner had the final say. He ruled the home, and he and it was just a sign of the times, really. But when I looked for my life partner, when I chose my life partner, I should say, I chose a man who could see me as an equal, and that we were always going to be equals, always. And so I went back to work, but then we both decided that we'd start this business, and we already had, a mortgage on a home, 80% mortgage. We'd borrowed more money at a very high interest rate in 2008, at the time of a financial crisis. So we were doing all the things that no one would do. And we started a business in the construction industry because he had that background too. And and then it sort of evolved from there. My sort of business experience evolved from there. But did I actually answer your question? I'm so sorry. I just kind of went off at a tangent.
Oh, yes, you were talking. I asked you about embodying your sense of yourself and how you took that into how you translated that into your business. So I was tracking you. That's the thing that I love so much about having conversations with women, and especially moms. Like, I remember when my daughter was really little, and you'd be out and I'd be with other moms, and it was just like it was like this feeding. You'd be like, oh, it's like, water in a desert, and you'd be talking to another adult because you were just so constantly talking to a little person, as lovely and wonderful as they are. And so you have this conversation, and you'd begin here, and then you get interrupted, and then you'd go there and you get interrupted, and then you'd go here and you get interrupted, and you'd go here and get interrupted, and then you'd go right back. Because we're like tracking. I am tracking everything that you're saying.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. Because yes, I did go off at a tangent, but I guess where I was going to with that is it's that self-belief, it's that self-trust, right? It's all kind of connected with value as well. And betting on ourselves, betting on ourselves that we are worth more in employment, betting on ourselves that we can borrow money, start a business, and make it worth. It's kind of it's all linked, right? And I guess that's why I sort of went off at that.
Oh no, I wasn't saying you went off on a tangent. I want to be clear. I was saying that I was tracking everything you were saying, and there's a through line. What you were speaking about was a through line of self-trust and of following I heard you say that you were a rebel, and that even though you grew up with what was a traditional family, your father's way of being really served you, because you were like, and I'm going out on a limb here, but from what you're saying was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to have that kind of life.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't feel as women. I mean, I caught a little bit of what you said. You were talking to Joy about in the previous interview, which was incredible. Sometimes we are looking for permission. We need external validation, and I guess self-worth and that trust and belief needs to come from within often,
Yes.
right? And we don't need permission, and we should not ask for permission, but sometimes it is what we need to just move forward.
Yeah. You just said something that just like pinged. So one of the things that I talk about with my clients, and also with whether you're a mom or you're not a mom, or you're remothering yourself, which a lot of us are engaged in. One of the developmental stages, and I talked about this with one of the other guests, Stephanie Dawn, is a parent in a perfect world is meant to reflect back to the child, right? So a child learns that they matter because the parent lets them know they don't have to do something to matter. What's being reflected back to them is, I see you, I hear you, I'm holding you, I love you. And that, when you said about sometimes we do need that reflection, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
That's why having a coach like yourself, or Joy, or Stephanie, or myself, or some of the other experts and leaders that are on this event, that's why it's so helpful to pick someone who's going to reflect back to you that.
Absolutely, because we have our blind spots, right? And as humans, and probably more so women, we tend to kind of always steer towards we're not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough. We haven't done enough. And the guilt and the, we sort of make something mean more than it actually is. Because I didn't do this, then therefore I'm not a good parent, or I'm not a good daughter, or I'm not a good wife, or,
Right.
as opposed to I did that because that was the best thing for me at that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't put ourselves first.
Right.
And I think it's easier when we're younger as well, when we're a little bit more self-centered, and we're a little bit more carefree, and, that rebellious stage.
Mm-hmm.
It did shift after I became a mum, despite continuing to bet on myself. I've certainly, second guessed and questioned, am I doing the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Should I have gone back to work after, being a mum, just because I was earning more? Was that the right thing to do? Oh my goodness. I've been there. You question everything.
Yeah. Sometimes, I think of the very famous quote is a life that is not self-examined is not really a life. And I completely, butchered that, but it's really about, I think it makes sense when you really care deeply about the people in your life, and you care deeply about what you're doing in the world, that you take that time to do that self-examination. And because it also is reflected, you get your information in your relationships. If you have a lot of conflict, or you have, you're not able to actualize, or, you have your business, when you're in a business, you get it reflected back because you get to see the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so hard to know whether we are doing the right thing. And and hindsight is always a wonderful thing, right? And you reflect and you kind of go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that, maybe it's my fault, maybe you know maybe my child wouldn't have had the mental health challenges that they had as a teenager if I had stayed at home and and
Right.
being a different type of parent, right? Because
Right.
we're always looking to, I guess some of us kind of can be at go to the extremes of wanting to take complete responsibility for everything that's ever happened in our lives. And sometimes it's not that simple, right? Because so much is out of our control.
Mm. Yes, and also when I hear you say that, what I think about too is I think about the cooperative component that we come together, right? So, in my cosmology and my belief is that we are souls. Pierre de Teilhard said that we are spiritual beings having a human life experience. So I believe it's a sacred agreement where we come together as souls. So in this lifetime, my daughter's my daughter, my husband's my husband. We came together in this sacred contract. And so what happens, I think, in our lives is also according to what their souls need, as well as ours. So yes, we can do the very best that we can do to really explore and examine and research, and then we let go and we know that their souls are on a journey. And I think that's the mystery and the mysticism of being a parent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Life happens for us, right?
Yeah.
So it gives there are times when that's a very comforting thing to keep remembering, as difficult as it might be to understand when you're kind of navigating adversity. But everything happens for a reason, and we have to trust and believe that yeah, that we can only do our best, and our best is enough.
Yes. Yes. And we always have an opportunity. Kelly Gore's talked about something that I love so much, and it's like repairing. In my language, is repairing the rupture. Like we get to do that.
Yeah.
We get to
Yeah.
repair. We get to go back and repair it and be gentle with ourselves, because
Yeah.
the response when we come to parenting or reparenting ourselves, building a business that's so personal, like the work that you're doing with women, cold, sales cold, right away. There's a caring that goes with that, and we bring so much earnestness to it. And then it's about being gentle with ourselves for the times when we stumble, and then we pick ourselves back up. We get to do again. I love the words do over. Let's do a do over.
Yeah.
Let's come back again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like it's not a one-way street, right? That's the way I see it as well. We can go back and course correct, and we can learn from our mistakes. And yeah, as long as our intention was and is always good, which I believe, like as women know, well, most of us really have very, very good intentions with raising our children, with running businesses, with supporting clients, with everything that we do, supporting
Yeah.
family. It's never a bad intention, but sometimes, life happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, things happen. Like this internet connection that is a little wonky here. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'll just acknowledge, that I do see the internet connection. But I would love for you to speak about your business and how you help, take their followers from cold to soul, because that converting process is always really interesting journey. Will you please speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So a little bit like I missed all of Joy's interview, but I do look forward to going back and listening to all your speakers today. I've built my business model around simplicity. I mean, it needed to be simple. I had a lot going on with my family because this was my second business. I was navigating some mental health sort of challenges that my teenager was experiencing, plus my parents sort of relied on me a lot for support. So I had to build this business in a very simple way in order for it to be a success. And what I discovered is the fastest way to establish your authority so people can, in the online space, we talk about know, like, and trust. That's kind of a marketing term to move someone from not knowing who you are to someone who's ready to buy from you, right? And so the fastest way to do that is to give them as much information as they can possibly need in order to make that decision. I've chosen to build my business on generosity. And so in my world, in my business, this is part of the simplicity. It's either free or it's high ticket. I actually don't have anything in between. But my free is incredibly valuable, and it's not fluff. It's real, like people can actually take my free information and build a business.
Wow.
So the freebie that I'm offering your viewers today is exactly the same. You can create an offer from that. The only difference between the free and working with me is the feedback, the coaching, the transformation that comes from the conversation, right? Because it's specific to someone's business. Right. But really the information is exactly the same. And I've chosen to build my business that way. And so people can come into my world, and this happens very often, like statistically, 70% of my clients have known me for less than 5 days.
Wow. That's an incredible turnover.
Yeah. And they are making a very high investment. Right. But what they've been able to do is binge on my free trainings and think, wow, if this is free, then what do I get when I actually work with Anne, right? And so that's essentially what it is. It's about, it's very different to what a lot of other people teach, and that is, don't give too much away, just share a little bit, so then people will actually, invest in order to find out all the juicy details. Whereas some kind of like, here's everything. So I know I'm having so much impact, and that is my ultimate goal. And I don't want this just to be for people who can afford to work with me. I want everyone to benefit. And then I only work with a handful of clients.
It's wonderful.
So I can manage my time, and I can also, I can still earn well.
That's wonderful. That's very beautiful. I love that model of generosity, because so many times there's this speaking about generosity, but there's underneath that is this scarcity. So
absolutely. Yeah. And I really feel there's so much abundance, and there's so much, there are so many clients, and, on the internet, quite honestly, there's so much information too, so why not give more? But of course, the coaching experience is a different experience, and that is something you can't translate that into something, into an hour's training. And so that's what the experience that my clients get.
I love that. Yeah, you can't translate that. Oh, oops, excuse me.
That's right.
The beauty of having a home office, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't trade it, but there's those moments. Uh, that I really appreciate what you're saying, because it does speak to the fact that you can't, even with like Chat GBT and all of the AI, you cannot replace the work that I do with clients. A robot couldn't do.
Exactly.
They couldn't.
Exactly. And working with women, um, and I'm sure you find this too, we're emotional beings. We have mindset blocks, we have belief systems that need to shift. And that happens in the conversation.
Yes.
It can't, I mean, I teach on mindset, but it's a very individualized thing, how someone is feeling and what's causing them to feel that way, and to kind of dig a little bit deeper to remove those blocks, to then be able to really own their self-worth and really show up in a much more confident way, because as heart-centered women, we're typically overgiving.
Right.
And
Right.
I do that to an extent with my generosity too. Then I'm very comfortable with how much I charge my paying clients, right? So because they're two very different experiences.
I love that. That's the I know for me that last piece has been such a growing learning, having your own business and being in a service position, and allowing it to be okay to charge a nice, to live off what you do for work, right? It's not,
Yeah.
so many times people have this misconception about charging for your services.
Yeah, and it comes from societal beliefs that, unfortunately, Wendy, I feel really strongly about this. Women who are successful aren't always portrayed as being nice women.
That's true.
If you look back at the movies or in media, women are, if you're rich, you're a bitch. Excuse my language, but
Yeah.
or you have attitude, or women with boundaries or with standards are considered to have an attitude.
Yes.
They have boundaries and they have standards. They're good people,
Right.
and it seems like you can't be wealthy and be good unless
Right.
you're Mother Teresa. There are some exceptions, right? There are very, very few exceptions to the rule. And that's the stereotypes that we need to shift and change, right? And sometimes, yeah, whereas men seem to somehow, I mean, don't get me wrong, men also have labels sometimes,
Yeah.
with depending on how wealthy they are. But there is some sort of disassociation between, or association between, money and personality. Like I believe money in good hands does good things.
I do too.
And so the more money we can get into good hands, the more good we can do in this world.
Yeah.
Whereas the money is the root of all evil has been this long running kind of belief system that we've all been raised with. And, there's shame attached to wealth. There's guilt attached to wanting more, and they're the kind of underlying things that we need to navigate, because that's part of our beings, right? That's how we've been raised. And even talking about money, like that's, there's some shame attached to that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you just don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Oh my God, we're going deep and we've got to bring this to a close. Oh my God, this is so juicy. So we're going to continue this conversation on another platform because this is so important to talk about this, just because it's connected to everything. When you start to talk about money, when you start to talk about wealth, when you start to talk about impact, and so thank you for doing the work that you're doing to help women receive such goodness so that they can go out and they can share that goodness.
Yeah, look, you're so welcome. And it is my life's work. It really, truly feels like a calling, I don't take any of this for granted. And yeah, I know the little bit that I'm doing it's starting to create a ripple effect, like Joy said earlier too. It's so, so important that as women that we all rise together, because there is no competition. We can all rise together and we can support each other, and it all starts with our own self-worth, because if we don't have that, then no one's going to value us unless we value ourselves first. Mic drops. Yeah.
Thank you. So you have a free gift for the viewers today, yes?
Yes, I do. It's how to create a high converting, high ticket offer. There are a few little things that need to be considered when doing that. And so I thought that could be a good gift to offer your audience. And yeah.
Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Thank you. I will make sure that everyone knows how to connect with you everyone who's listening or watching. So there is the speakers page, and there's a link there that will take you right to Anne's special gift for you. And I encourage you and I invite you to go and avail yourself of her generosity. And thank you for being here, Anne. Happy Mother's Day. Do they celebrate Mother's Day in Australia?
Yes, it is Mother's Day here too. It's officially Mother's Day tomorrow, but I'm catching up with my mum today, who has pretty advanced Alzheimer's. So, but it's still so lovely to catch up with her. Thank you, Wendy, for having me today. It's been such a fun conversation. And
thank you. It is so my joy.
A great summit that you've pulled together with some beautiful women.
Thank you very, very much. I'm really glad we connected, and I look forward to many more conversations. Thank you.
Likewise.
All right.
Bye
Bye for now.